Hey folks, Nathan here. It's just a quick video here. Quick background on why I'm doing this. Basically, we're coming up on my birthday, and my wife is always looking for weird things to get for me that I would enjoy, but that I may not put the money down for myself. So a lot of games and movies and stuff like that are out because I tend to pre-order those things. Well, turns out with the Eve Valkyrie Warzone update coming up, she decided, after kind of getting some input from me, that she wanted to go ahead and pick me up a Thrustmaster T-Flight HOTAS 4, basically joystick and throttle and whatnot, to be able to use that on Eve Valkyrie, because that is one of the ones that they actually recommend for that game. So I sort of had, special controllers on the brain, simulation controllers on the brain. And after not finding one of the movies that I was looking for today at Best Buy, I stopped by Target nearby. And sure enough, they had a Thrustmaster T80 racing wheel, which of course comes with the 2 foot pedals for gas and brake. Had one of those. It's a $100 racing wheel that they had on clearance for $30. So I couldn't help myself. With Gran Turismo Sport coming, with Dirt Rally already available, and Drive Club VR slowly creeping down in price, my thought was, you know what? It's time to actually try out a racing wheel. My Uncle Dave, who loves racing wheel games and actually buys the systems just for racing games, would be so proud. So basically, I've played around with the options a little bit. I want to show you, sort of by comparison, the gameplay here. If you've watched my old Dirt Rally live stream, my driving was god-awful, and I was playing with a typical controller. Now, with my settings set up the way that it seems like they're going to work well for this, I want to show you sort of the improvement in the driving. You can compare this to that other video to get a sense of how much even a basic racing wheel, not one of the big, expensive force feedback ones, can make a difference. All right. Now, I got to recenter because basically right now my chest is in the middle of the seat. There we are. Well, hi. How are you doing? Okay, so you're, of course, inside the vehicle. We've seen this before. You got the interesting setup there at the top. Only thing that sucks, of course, is that you turn around and the rest of the vehicle is not there. So, whatever. I have set it so that whenever I'm in this mode, there's no body.
5,
and
4,
here we go.
3, 2, 1, go.
Again, I'm using a gas pedal and a brake pedal, but no clutch, because I am also using automatic transmission. And I'm using the T80 as my steering wheel.
Middle over crest jump maybe. 150 through dip. Middle over crest, 80. Left 5 half long over bump. 40. Okay, right 5 over crest.
I mean, think back to my earlier driving.
Small crest, 40 past junction. Left
and I was lucky to stay on the frickin' road, right? Particularly when I'm doing any type of fast driving.
Tightens 5 long, 40. Keep left over crest jump. 60 bump.
But I mean, this is
caution middle over big jump. And left 6, 100.
This plays well, and of course, big jump. Oh, you can feel it.
Caution, crest jump maybe. Left 6, 60, turn square right, don't cut.
Square right. Uh-oh.
Into right 5 long, past junction.
That's this one! Not too good on figuring out how to handle those turns yet. Because it's not like I do that going crazy fast in real life or anything, so, But able to stay aligned on the road much better. For what it's worth, I'm driving the way I tend to drive my real car, which is my right hand at 12. I know you're not supposed to do that. My right hand at 12. My left hand essentially at 9, acting as sort of a stabilizer and assisting me in corrections.
Left 3 half long, opens over crest, 80.
Big jump! Woo!
Right 5 long over 2 small crest, 100.
Woo!
Caution left 4 over
no motion sickness or anything like that at this point, which is insane to me, but okay. Whoa, 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 whoa! Oh, 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 oh! And down.
Rear left flat.
All right, so again, just kind of the point being that it is a much better feel to the setup, at least in my opinion. So just real quickly, here's what the settings are in case you are trying to use a Thrustmaster T80 also. So went into preferences and left preferences as they are. But controls is where you need to go. And you got advanced wheel settings. The rest of the stuff you don't really need to deal with, but advanced wheel settings. Okay. And as you can see here, I have steering dead zones set at 0. My steering saturation is set at 60%. The idea being that basically this is the percentage of input to get full output. So unless you want to be really wildly swinging the wheel, I would set that at something under 100%. For me, 60% worked well on the T80. Felt fairly natural. Steering linearity, 0. Throttle dead zone, 0%. Throttle saturation at 100%. Brake dead zone also at 0%. Saturation at 100%. Basically, saturation at 100% for everything except for steering, which will be presumably lower. Clutch dead zone at 20, but I'm not using a clutch, so not a biggie there. But otherwise pretty straightforward. And you can look at the bottom and you notice how that little slider is shifting a little bit. What I'm able to do basically is when I put my feet down on the pedals, I can press the right pedal and see exactly how responsive that's going to be for the throttle. Same thing for the left pedal for the brake and my steering. So basically this is about 90 degrees here and here. And there is a very easy calibration if you go further down. Okay, so soft lock is going to basically make it so that in essence your wheel is matching the game to the extent of what constitutes the ends of the spectrum of turning, if that makes any sense. Center steering, the idea that it's going to pull towards the center when reset. And then you have the calibration, and calibration is very easy. It's going to have you go full lock in one direction. Now, full lock does not mean just go until, you know, it feels like it should be the far right. Go all the way until you can't move it anymore and press a button. Okay? Then go to 90 degrees and then do the same thing. And then press all your pedals down as far as possible. Again, I don't have a clutch. And there you are. And again, it'll give you a chance to test out your settings. Not bad at all. And so on. I've actually got my one that I played around with for a bit saved as a preset, so I'm not going to apply those settings. And you can, once you got it to where it feels good for you, you can save that configuration. If it's not quite right, you don't have to start from scratch. You can load your previous configuration, change it, resave it over top of, or in a different slot than the other configuration. You actually have 8 different presets that you can set up. So you have a little bit of wiggle room with that. If you got maybe you and another person playing on the same game, in particular playing with the same device, but you both have different preferences as far as, for instance, you know, maybe one of you wants soft lock on, the other one doesn't. You can just go in when it's that person's turn or when that person is playing, make sure it loads their configuration, and you are good to go. If you're wondering about those buttons down there, the wheel itself has, kind of tough to see here. There we go. The wheel itself has your L2 and R2, and your L3 and R3 are basically where, if your hands are at 10 and 2, that's where your thumbs are going to be. Okay, so it's just buttons built into the wheel. And you have your face buttons. Whoa! Can't exactly press that one. Your face buttons are basically on the center column of the steering wheel, where your right thumb would be if your hands are at 90 degrees at 3 and 9. Your D-pad is on the left side, same position. You have a big thing that looks like a PSN button in the center, but it's not. It's just a PS symbol. You go lower than that, which is basically not at 6 o'clock, but going down towards 6 o'clock from the center of the steering wheel. You've got your PS button, your options, and your share buttons. And then on the back, basically, so if you're holding it at 10 and 2 or at 9 and 3, and you let basically your fingers, not your thumbs, but your fingers kind of hang off the back and rest against the back. There are two sort of wing type buttons that are used for R1 and L1 that click for you. And then, of course, you've got your pedals down there. Again, no clutch on this one because it's a 2-pedal setup. Basically, the wheel itself plugs in through your USB. You take the wheel and you have a connector thing on it so you can sit in your lap, I guess, theoretically. But it's meant more to be hooked on something in front of you while you are sitting. So you take that and you can basically hook it up to the edge of a table. It's got a thing that clamps down underneath it to sort of sandwich the table in between the wheel's base and the little arm that you screw onto it. And then the pedals attach with a thing that looks very similar to an old school landline telephone wire that plugs into the base that's connected to the wheel. So a fairly easy thing to set up. It did not take very long at all. It did take me a little bit of time to figure out my wheel options, but I think that was more because I've never played with a racing wheel before, except in the arcade, as opposed to it being anything having to do with just difficulty of setup. I just had to kind of get used to it again. So definitely something where if you've been wanting a decent racing game for PSVR, you can wait for Gran Turismo, but you also do have Dirt Rally as an option, as we've talked about before. I felt it significantly better than Drive Club VR, at least from a visual standpoint and immersion standpoint. And if you're going for immersion in a racing game, as that uncle of mine who loves these things has always told me, you just can't go wrong with a racing wheel, even if it is a fairly basic one. There are much more expensive models than the T80, but apparently there are at least some targets out there who are trying to move their old unmoved stock of T80s. So you might look around, maybe you'll find a good deal like I did, getting a $100 setup for $30. So just wanted to try that out, show you. Holy crap, I can actually drive with this thing way better than with a controller. For me, definitely worth the purchase. At full price? Probably not, because I don't play racing games often enough. But at $30, to be able to play something like this and Gran Turismo with that kind of immersion, heck yeah. So your mileage will certainly vary. Thanks, everybody.